Orleans. Sam, good morning.
Hoda, Craig, good morning. The damage is ubiquitous. I'm standing right now on Highway 61 here. The reason I can't stand in this location is because there are trees this size all up and down the highway, in addition to power lines that are down. There's large pieces of machinery out here. There is a crisis situation unfolding right now in Laplace. I was just over there about an hour ago. Guys had to come back here because there was not enough service to report live from what I was seeing. But buildings torn apart, cinder blocks everywhere, gas station with a power line sitting right on top of it, and of course, rescue efforts. I spoke with the Louisiana Cajun Navy. They are waiting to try to get in there. They confirmed for me that reports of potentially thousands of people calling in to be rescued are accurate. I spoke with a police officer who was sitting along the highway and said, "Where are all these people stuck?" He said, "Everywhere, all over the parish." In the light of day now, efforts jump-started to try to rescue them. Hurricane Ida barreling into the Louisiana coast overnight. The devastation in the region felt throughout small towns, many without the kind of infrastructure New Orleans built up after Hurricane Katrina. The strong winds and heavy flooding that Ida brought, wreaking havoc on power lines, houses, and roads. Residents trapped in attics and on rooftops, turning to social media in desperation, tweeting their locations in the hope of help. One man posting that he's stuck with a group on flooded I-10 with CPR being performed on a drowning victim, writing, "People drown in my arms, and we are extremely exhausted with nowhere to go." Wind and floods sweeping through towns like Houma and Lafitte, each over an hour outside of New Orleans.
The initial focus this morning will be going to Lafitte, Barataria, Crown Point area. We have had a lot of rescue requests there.
In Laplace, about 30 miles outside of New Orleans, Tiffany Miller says that she and her family got trapped inside their home. Miller, who spoke with our local station, WDSU, before she was later rescued, says when the weather conditions began to deteriorate, she and her family frantically retreated into their home's attic.
We're just kind of all sitting on like a beam in the same area, just trying to hang tight and hoping and praying that the winds will die down because the house is shaking really, really bad.
Craig, Hoda, I just spoke with a woman a little while ago who says she is waiting to try to reach her friend right now, has been unable to do so. The 911 communications in New Orleans and in Laplace right now are very challenged. Social media, as you mentioned earlier, Hoda, right now is the resource for folks. We know one family tweeting out there's 5 people inside of their home, including a young boy and girl. This is the measure that people have to resort to right now, just to try to get help, as we now see the light of day coming up.
I think what struck us, what you said, I mean, there were a lot of things obviously in your report that struck us, but you said possibly thousands of people trapped. I think Laplace isn't one of those places that always floods. There are certain places that are prone to it. And again, we should point out that some people say, well, why didn't people evacuate? Some people don't evacuate because they don't have some place to go, right? Their whole family lives there. Where are they driving? Do they have the resources? Can they get out?
Yeah, a lot of folks just can't afford to get out. Sam, you mentioned you had to relocate because of the service issues. What did you see on that drive?
There are so many people I've had those conversations with. They just don't have the money. The hotels were all booked up, Craig and Hoda, or in fact, getting onto the highway itself was jammed. It was a parking lot getting in out of Baton Rouge and as well as New Orleans for days down here. All of those are issues. But Hoda, to your initial question about the thousands of people potentially being rescued, when I spoke with the fleet captain for the Cajun Navy, they said they knew of a head count of a couple hundred people, but there were thousands of calls and areas and communities they had not explored yet. So now that we can actually see the extent of the damage and find out what areas are truly flooded, that number could rise.
And Laplace, we should point out, appears to be the hardest hit. I mean, in terms of flooding, if you're looking at the big picture, because New Orleans was fortified, other areas got just really hit so hard by those winds that were reaching above 150 miles an hour and again sat on top of them for a long time. But Laplace is one of those places that seems to be the hardest hit of all that we've seen. So we're glad that you made it there. We know that wasn't an easy journey. And please keep us informed because I think you're right there in the heart of it.
Sam Brock for us there in Laplace. Sam, we'll come back to you in just a bit. This is an area that you know well. We'll come up in just a few minutes. We're going to